Okay, guys, this is part two of Sue's story of survival from narcissistic abuse. I'll be reading her second email here. She goes into more details on what transpired. Hi, Richard. Thanks for taking the time to write back. Can I think about the video if you don't mind? The only reason is because I have a suspicion my ex-husband spies on me. I'm not sure if he put something on my phone to track my emails, texts. It's just that through the divorce, he seemed to know things about me and what I was doing and saying to people, and I concluded he'd put something on my phone. He'd bought it for me one Christmas before we split up, and he set it all up for me. But I know I shouldn't care if he reads stuff that I post. I think it's still his indoctrination. So I will have a think about it and get back to you on that. I think you are correct, though. And Sue, you see, you've already made that decision. You've already made that breakthrough. You've already shown yourself how courageous you are by allowing me to do these videos for you now. And there's a few different things here I want to touch on. So, we have to break that hold that these narcissists had, guys, because we can't just move halfway across the world and hide from these people and think that, okay, I got away from them. If we do not heal ourselves and face these things and speak our truth and be courageous and speak our truth and put it out there, these narcissists, that hold they have over us was not just a physical hold, guys. So what happens is, if you're halfway across the world in the Himalayas or the Amazon jungle somewhere hiding from them, and you are still thinking, you still have thoughts that cross your mind, and you are reacting, and it changes how you act, behave, think, process things, speak, all of these things, it is an immediate energy transference to them. Okay, so until you break that hold completely by healing, the first step in your healing is you have to speak your truth. You have to tell what happened to you, and you have to completely face these things and process them. So until you do, that narcissist is feeding off you every moment that you do these things, that you are altering your behaviors, actions, words, thoughts, and everything else based off of fear and worry of them. Okay, the part about him spying on you, maybe it's true. Maybe it's true. But again, fuck it. What a narcissist fears the most is the truth. Now, the only thing they can do is, if he does have your phone bugged and he's keeping track of you, which he probably isn't. They usually aren't that involved, but sometimes they can be. But even if he is, what's he going to do? All he can do is see that you're finally telling your story, and then he can, either try to set something up for you to get you hurt, to get you shut up, but usually what they'll do is they will start going behind your back to all your guys' friends or family that you have in connection with each other, and they'll start laying the groundwork for their further manipulations. That way, when you come out and try to say something, all of these people will already have their minds made up, and they won't even tell you that he came to them first, and then they'll already have their minds made up about you, and then after you tell your side, they're going to go straight to him and be like, yeah, that crazy bitch came to me and said this, blah, 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 blah. You were right. She's a fucking loony bin. So, that's why it's so important. The only way we can defeat these people is by telling our truth. That is the only way. We have to, no matter what, because what is happening is we are delaying the inevitable. At some point in time, our truth has to be told. Otherwise, we're hiding under a rock the rest of our lives in fear and worry. So our truth has to be told. These things have to come out. It's a process, and it's coming into your own and realizing how strong you were to even survive for years under that kind of shit, and that you have that strength. You just have to spend it on yourself now, because the narcissist takes your self-worth and keeps it in their pocket. And that's how they get their energy. So you have to take that back. You have to say, nah, motherfucker, I'm the most special, important thing on this goddamn earth, and you had no right to treat me like that. Everything you did was wrong. I do not accept it. And, this is how it is. So, also, so you mentioned how he knew what you were saying to people, they're going through your divorce and things like that. Again, that could have been him setting you up and those people coming behind your back and telling him. It could have possibly been that. That might be how he knew these things. But also the narcissist, you got to understand this. Us as victims, when we're living under the narcissist, we are living in survival. So, and we don't hide things. And when we think we're hiding things, we're not very good at hiding things, because the narcissist is very conniving, manipulating, and cunning. He can understand. He can read our energies. He can read our thoughts. He can read, because he owns us, basically. The predator knows his prey. That's how he was able to get him trapped in the first place. That's how the spider got him trapped in the first place. He knows the flight patterns of his prey. And if his prey, if that fly starts flying in a different flight pattern, he's like, oh, he knows about me. He knows what I'm up to. And then he has to build his web in a different spot. So you see what I'm saying? They be careful about that paranoia. Again, it's breaking free from that. No matter what game he's playing, got your phone tapped, got people watching you, whatever. You have to break. You can't live in fear for the rest of your life. You can't live hiding the rest of your life. You can't live being worried all the time. You have to. You aren't going to be able to heal like that, and you're not healing in that manner. You'll never reclaim that wholeness because you're constantly giving him that power over you. So yeah, and you're already taking the steps. So, look how quickly your progress is happening already. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. Realize how courageous and how strong you are in your being, and you're desperate to heal. You're finally taking these steps after years. You're finally coming out and telling your story. So, you sent me this email, and then like the next day you said, okay, make it, So, I mean, your progress is already being catapulted, Sue. You see, when I had a Facebook account a few years ago, he would call me names and made me feel bad when I would go on it. He even accused me a few times of messaging other men. I didn't. I never posted anything about myself on it. I barely used it, but I felt guilty even when I did. And that's how they control. They control through shame and guilt. That's how our governments control us. That's how they get us to pay 50% of our income in taxes to them, while they go out there and wage wars and kill people all over the world and do all these stupid, non-necessary things while we're living in poverty and just barely getting by and surviving. They make the governments, every predator, whether it's government, whether it's a boss, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a parent, whether it's a narcissistic spouse, it doesn't matter. They all operate the same. They have to put their prey under shame and guilt. They have to put their prey under their thumb, because then they are easily controllable and gullible. Okay? He even accused me a few times. I read that. Even the kids would tease me and say, ooh, who you writing to? Are you on Facebook again? See how disgusting this guy is, man? I mean, even has the kids fucking controlling you. Like, so that way when he wasn't there, and what they call them, in psychology terms, they're called flying monkeys. Imagine like that movie, The Wizard of Oz, like, the wizard had his flying monkeys, so the wizard could only see so much and do so much, but then he had his flying monkeys out there doing his evil deeds for him. And that's what your kids were, that he turned your kids into flying monkeys for him. I also had a Twitter account, and my husband would read the things I posted, replying to people on there when I would go to bed, and then the next days he'd slag me off for it and cause an argument. So I ended up only using my phone when he wasn't around. Yeah, complete control. And everybody who's been under narcissistic abuse understands exactly what I understand, exactly what you're saying. And anybody else who's been under a narcissistic, controlling, fuckface abuser like that understands exactly what you're saying. And it's not right. It's terrible. It's abuse. Misuse. Abuse means misuse. In 2020 onwards, he would always call me a conspiracy theorist, and that I was following nutcases. He didn't like me having my own mind, you see. He used to say, you're wasting your time. There's nothing you can do about anything. Okay, two things there. So the abuser loves calling you crazy, because that's how they get you from speaking truth. These narcissists, these governments, these teachers, they hate the truth. They hate the truth. The truth is the only thing, because see, they live in fantasy land and they've created their own fantasy. Like teachers go to school and they get all this education, and then that's their fantasy. They live in education fantasy. These government officials go to figure out how politics works and how they can control populations, and they're drunk off of it. Okay, so they live in fantasy. So these narcissists, in order to break this narcissistic hold, the truth must come out, because that is what they are afraid of. That's what they're scared of. And so so they make us feel crazy. That's why they came up with the term conspiracy theorist. Comes from, when JFK was assassinated, and then the CIA didn't want people investigating, and so they labeled everybody that question the narrative as conspiracy theorists, and that's been around ever since the 60s when JFK was assassinated. So they plant these things, guys. We are living in a completely controlled, narrated, scripted environment in this matrix. This matrix is scripted like this from top to bottom. That's why in order to truly heal, we have to detach from everything, because everything we participate in this matrix, the fake monetary system, the indoctrination system, the education system, the politics, the sports, the rigged sports, you name it, work, money, all of that is all tied into the way the matrix works and feeds off of us. Okay, it's a predatory system, guys, and that's why we have to individually, each one of us, it is our responsibility to detach and recognize that we are eternal, all-knowing, all-powerful, empathic souls connected to everything on that level, occupying the most advanced biological thing on this earth. And I keep on saying it, and I will continue to keep on saying it until it gets through everybody's slave-minded skull and pierces that mind slave box that's been programmed into you, because that needs to be your fundamental foundation from which you come from, of who you are. Because if you think you're just some product of evolution, and you're just just a speck of dust you have no, why are you even living? You might as well go and dopamine hit and fucking party down until the day you die and fuck everybody over to get everything you want, because there's no other sense in living if you're just a speck of dust in the atmosphere. Do you see what I'm saying, guys? You have to come to terms with who we are, and then we will stop. Once you can come to terms and accept who we are, our essence, then you will stop allowing these lower things to control and manipulate and abuse us. And so he didn't like you having your own mind and questioning things and thinking for yourself, because they hate people who look into the truth, because they know that when you start doing that, they know that all the lies and manipulation they're holding over you, and you're getting your critical thinking going, and they don't want that. They're trying to shut it down. You're crazy. You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. These are all a bunch of nut jobs. These are crazy people. There's nothing you can do about anything anyways. Then that whole powerless trip. You're not powerful. Look, you're a fucking housewife. You don't, shut up, bitch, go make dinner, right? And they make you feel powerless. They make you feel like nothing. They make you feel like you don't even deserve to be speaking, more or less thinking for yourself, because they as your predator, just like every government, every teacher, every parent, every abusive spouse, they want to control you from top to bottom. They want to tell you what to think, how to think, what your options are, and all of that. And they don't want you considering or thinking or even knowing about anything outside of their control. And it's all tied together. You guys have to start recognizing this, guys. His control was mostly emotional and mental abuse, and that's the worst kind of abuse. Emotional, mental, spiritual abuse is the worst kind of fucking abuse. And then you have verbal, and then you have physical. He never hit me, and he didn't stop me doing things, but it was emotional and mental coercive abuse. And like I mentioned, I never had any savings, so he controlled me. Oh, and he controlled you financially. Every aspect of your being. He was the breadwinner, and he controlled the money and what we could and couldn't buy. Yeah. We had a joint account, and he always made out we didn't have much money. I gave up work for 8 years to look after the kids, so we only had his wage coming in. But I felt like I couldn't go out and buy things freely I more often than not had to ask if I could buy something for myself. I'd feel bad if I spent money, and I couldn't just go and blow a load of money. He'd go through the bank statements and would tell me I'd spent too much in certain shops. It wasn't stuff for me, it was mainly for the kids in the house, and he accused me of making us go overdrawn. Yeah, again, just, just keeping that constant, keeping you on a leash, like a choker chain, like, anytime you try to do anything, so that way, what it is, it's Pavlov's dog. He's conditioning you. He conditioned you. That's what these predators do. That's why the government, the United States government has 80,000 laws under the book where you can't even walk outside. You can't even do things inside your house without breaking 25,000 different laws. It's so ridiculous because they want you in a constant state of fear. They want you in a constant state of walking the line of doing everything that you're supposed to do and being a good little obedient servant, slave, or oh God, shame and guilt, shame and guilt, shame and guilt, shame and guilt. Get back on course, get back on course. Apologize to your abuser for not listening. Apologize to your abuser. Well, they don't know exactly what you did, but go ahead and tell them the truth and get it out because it's going to make you feel bad anyways. And you might as well just tell them now because they love you and you love them. And hopefully this will make them trust you more. They are using you. The government is using you, the education system's using you, your abusive spouse is using you, your parents used you. It is all abuse, guys, misuse. Then, like I mentioned in 2007, when I got a credit card and racked up 5,000 euros or lirs, I don't know what that is, on one, he went ballistic and said I'd gotten us into debt and that he won't be paying it off and I'd have to get a job. He also claimed that my oldest son, who was 6 at the time, had found the credit card statement in my drawer. Now I realize he lied about that as if a 6-year-old would do that. But for years he made me feel so ashamed about the debt and he'd tell anyone and everyone what I'd done like I was such a bad person. Yeah, exactly. So much to unpack there. Let's break this all down. So you went and got 5,000 euros or whatever it is in debt. He went ballistic. He loved that. That was his opportunity to really fucking he knew. He was like, ha ha, I got this bitch now. I got this bitch now. I will hold this over her head for the rest of her fucking life. And he did, right? So that was nothing but good for him because then he made you get a job anyways to pay it off. So it shouldn't have been held over your head at all because you got a job, you took responsibility and paid it off, right? No, but he still used it as a control mechanism. And then what else did he do? He went around behind your back and told everybody how of a bad person you are, how irresponsible you are. See, they paint you with this picture. How crazy that she's into conspiracy theories. She spends all the money. She's uncontrollable. Her emotions go up and down and up and down. That's just why we got to speak our truth. That's why we got to completely detach, get away from these people and speak our truth. Because we are living in their world. If we are not telling the truth, why'd you go out and spend money, right? Think about that. Because of your attachments to this world and not being able to heal and face this shit and get away from this stuff. So these things that you purchase, they make you feel good. Even if they might have been directly for you, they were for the kids, the house, whatever else. It makes you feel good. It's a dopamine. When we spend money, it's a dopamine hit. It's a fucking dopamine hit. It's a distraction from what really matters. It's a feel good moment. It's a chemical rush to the brain. Okay? And we have to understand this, guys, that it's all comfort. It's seeking comfort. Victims want comfort. They're in so much pain constantly and under so much stress constantly that they need comfort. And then we spend money. And then by spending money, what do? Then what happened when you spent that money, Sue? It made you have to get in the system, work a job, and then spend your energy on a job, and then have to slave away for what? For the things you bought. That were what? For momentary pleasure, to take that pain away, to take that suffering away just for a moment, right? So we got to think very deeply on why we even spend money on things, why we're attached to these new clothes, new purses, makeup, movies, entertainment, sports, going out to eat, all of these things, right? We're attached to them because they're dopamine, because they numb us. They numb us from our pain. We're not facing our pain. So instead we go out and we spend money, right? Which keeps us enslaved on the hamster wheel of enslavement. It's a circle, guys. And we need to quit the insanity. We need to stop. We need to stop. And we need to start thinking critically. And we need to recognize who we are in our true essence, and recognize that a whole eternal soul is not going out, who occupies the most advanced biological thing on this earth, is not getting pleasure from going out and spending money and getting dopamine hits and getting guilty pleasures and immediate instant gratification. That all comes from the ego. That all comes from survival. That all comes from victimhood. That all comes from being in immense traumatic pain and suffering. That all comes from being indoctrinated and placed under programming that puts you on these wheels of consumption. Okay? Think about this, guys. We got to think very deeply on these things. And then not only that, but then he's, right there at 6 years old with your oldest kid, he's already bringing your kids into the mix, into this whole nasty world, this whole nasty illusion he's been creating for you guys. This system of control that he's got. At 6 years old, he's blaming the kid that the kid found the credit card statement when he's the one that found the credit card statement. So what does that mean? He's been looking. He was just waiting for you to slip up. He was just waiting for you to fuck up so that way he could get you. So, these guys are nasty, man. And I'm telling you, they know, guys. They know us. We can't hide things from them. They know us better than we know ourselves. They pick up on energies 10 times quicker than we do. Okay? Because they know us inside and out. We cannot fool them. So that's why it feels like they're reading our minds or they're watching over our shoulders. No, they can guess. They feel that energy shift. They see that difference in the way we move, in the way we act. And they know. And that's why they call things out. And then you're like, oh, fuck, how'd he read my mind? Oh, God, how'd he know that? It's because, and not only that, not only do they know from our energy changes and our shifts and what we say and do, but they also know because they have all their flying monkeys out there that they got on their team behind our backs and we don't even know it. And then, are working behind our backs with all these other people. So it's like they have a whole gang. That's where whole gang stalking, part of the gang stalking comes in. If you got all these friends and family that are going behind your back and running behind your back and telling your narcissistic, abusive husband about what you're doing and everything you say and do, and they aren't telling you, and they think it's all a joke, and they think it's not a big deal what's going on, and that you're the crazy one, and that they're doing the right thing by telling him. This can go on for decades and decades and decades and decades of them fucking you over behind your back and you don't even know it. And they don't know that, most of them don't even know the extent to what's going on. Or they have a completely flipped 180 view of what's going on and think you're the crazy one and he's the good one. So you gotta understand, that's why the truth is speaking out and being courageous is the biggest thing we can do. He also put a wedge between me and my family, another classic sign. He never wanted to meet with them or go on any family to-dos and meals, and if he did come, he'd say, do we have to go? Can't we get out of it? And then he caused shit for the week before it and tried to get me to change my mind and not go, and he caused an argument with me whilst we were getting ready, and he'd spoil it, and we were always the last ones to arrive. Yeah, he ruined your life. This is what they do. Control and just ruining everything they can do to ruin you. And the reason he didn't want you around your family is because ultimately, your family puts you above him. And he didn't want anybody in your life that puts you above him. So he did whatever he could to cut them out. You were his prey. He was preying on you for decades. He could not have your family around. He could, because they might defend you. You would speak to them and then they'd validate your truth, and then his story would crumble because his story is all a bunch of lies, manipulation, and bullshit. So yeah, we all suffer that. We all suffer that under these narcissists. In fact, for the last 2 to 3 years of being with him, I fell out with my family. He loved the fact I didn't speak to them, and he would say to me, you don't need them. You've got me and the kids. Yeah, they only want you to need them. That's it. And the kids, and of course, who he turned against you, his flying monkeys. And they don't care about you or the kids, is what else he would tell her. Another classic sign. One of my sisters is a year older than me, and he never liked her even from when we were all 14, 15 years old. He never had a good word to say about her. I think he was jealous of her because she was outgoing and strong. I think you're right. He caused a lot of shit, and we also didn't go to her wedding because of him. Yeah, it's sad. So I never bothered with her much, and I wasn't close to her. Now, since I left him, me and my sister are very close, and now I realize it was him who caused all the problems. Yeah, eye-opening, isn't it? Yeah, for decades he separated you guys, and now you guys are as close as can be, and it's a healthy relationship, whereas he had you stuck in decades of abuse and suffering. But I was under his influence, and I didn't realize for years what he was doing to me. Yep. We did have some good times, but looking back, I'm not sure what, she misspelled something here, but looking back in 2007, 2008, the credit card incident, I don't think he forgave me for that because it started to go downhill from then on, but I think it took those years for me to get the courage and strength to leave him. Now, you always had the strength. And yeah, to get the courage, it didn't take you years to get courage. It's oh man, it's so hard, Sue. But it doesn't matter. You did it now, and you're reflecting on it, and that's good. And thinking about these things, and this is what you need to be thinking on and processing. In 2011 and 12, I wanted to leave him and take the kids with me, but they were about 9 and 8 at the time, and I remember thinking, where the hell would I end up? I had no money, no job, just part-time cleaning. I'd have to leave our nice 3-bedroom detached house, and I didn't want to live in a council house, which I guess a council house is the English version of the American, like, Section 8 housing, where you have to jump through hoops and requirements for the government and do all these things to be able to be allowed in their homes. And then usually you're in bad neighborhoods surrounded by, and your kids are in terrible schools and, drug-ridden neighborhoods and all that. So now we got to think about these things, though, Sue, So instead of having those kids in that situation, in that house, think about, if you did make that decision to take them into a council house, you would have been jumping from one situation where you're being controlled to another, but your kids might not have been influenced like they were. You know what I'm saying? So do you see what I'm saying? It's like, man, what a tightrope, and I'm not saying, go over and be like, oh, I should have done it, I should have left it, and no, I'm just saying, like, look at these other addictions that come into play here that you're speaking of, like wanting that nicer house for your kids, the nicer schooling system for your kids, the nicer neighborhood for your kids, right, the bigger house for your kids, all of these things, but look what you gave up. You kept them with this narcissistic abuser who manipulated and brainwashed them into hating their own mother and going against their own mother. And, so now they're going to in turn most likely be narcissistic abusers to their spouses and whoever else they come across as well. So, that's why what I'm trying to say here is I'm not saying you should regret not making proper decisions. What I'm saying is just think deeply on these things, because these are the things we need to critically think about and see how our addictions to the schooling system, to society, to all of these other things is so high on our agenda. Like, what was more important at that time was, even if you had to live in a council house, at least they would have just been under your guidance and care, and you could have at least had a home base for them where you could have taught them the fundamentals of what it means to be a human and how to properly care and treat people and how to watch out for these narcissists. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying regret anything. I'm not saying you made the wrong decision. I'm just saying all of this ties in, all of these addictions into this matrix, and all of these attachments into this matrix and the spider web this matrix has us in, all comes into play across the board in this. And we have to think very deeply on this. I didn't want to live in a council house. I'd have to get a proper job. Yeah, exactly. And then you'd be away from your kids more and everything. Everything. I understand exactly where you're coming from. Trust me. I'm just saying, now that we're at this healing phase, we need to recognize and accept the truth. period. No matter how much it hurts, no matter how much pain and guilt and shame we may feel, we get, and that's not proper. We can't carry shame and guilt. We got to, it's in the past. There's nothing we can do about it. We just have to now be courageous and face these things and be honest about them so we can process them thoroughly. Because then we see how everything's connected and how through this healing, it's not just healing from your narcissistic ex and your narcissistic kids. It's healing from everything that led up to this, which again is all going to, once you get full on into this, Sue, it's all going to now take you back into your childhood, where at the very first email you sent me, you said my childhood wasn't that bad. You're going to start realizing, oh my God, now I'm seeing how all the programming came into play. Now I'm learning how I even ended up under narcissistic abuse in the first place. Now I'm understanding how I got this programming for money and desire and how to dopamine hit and how to run away from my issues. Now I see how all of this is happening and how it reflects from the micro to the macro. It all reflects. It all, the whole matrix system runs off the same thing. The only way to break free from the matrix is the truth and detachment from all its breads and circuses. I'd have to get a proper job. I've had a health condition since 2009. And yeah, your health condition was most likely tied into narcissistic abuse, Sue. That's where most of the health conditions nowadays are tied into. Narcissistic abuse, stressful environments, the whole money, all of this. It's all stress, guys. It's all these diseases and all these health conditions that we suffer from and all these mental disorders that we have, all stems from living in non-conducive environments to biological life. Every single one of them. We are living in non-conducive environments to biological life. That's why in this healing, we have to break free not only just from the food addiction and the toxic, poisonous food addiction, the entertainment addiction, the bread and circus addiction, the distraction addiction, the politics addiction, the government addiction, all of these addictions, guys, that we have to break, because it's all tied in. It's all part of the matrix system to keep us under. It's all narcissistic, and it's all meant to keep us under control. Your husband is just a product of that. Your husband knows, and all narcissists know, this is the best way to survive in this system. Survival of the fittest, motherfucker. I'm going to get mine, fuck everybody and everything else. And that's how they live. Narcissists are just a total product of this nasty, disgusting social and cultural constructs in which we live that were purposefully created to make us into slaves. Period. So I ended up staying with him. Then in 2014, I wanted to leave him as his name calling had gotten a lot worse. He blamed me for arguments, etc., and he was also nasty to the kids too. I remember saying to them we'd be happy on our own, but I felt like I was stuck there with him. Yeah, and the reason it gets worse is because, again, as time goes on, they're dying inside, and they just need more and more energy generation. They need more and more. So they're hurting more inside, so they need to hurt more. Their pain becomes worse that they're putting on other people because they need it. They need it in order to survive. It's a whole energy system that it works off of. It's just the way this works, guys. And you felt like you were stuck there with them. Yeah, it's so sad, man. In November 2017, it came to another head, and I was so ready to tell him it was over, but at that time, his horrible father was dying of cancer, and I knew if I left him, he would go around bad-mouthing me and telling people what a bitch I was for leaving him when his dad was dying, etc. Yeah, see, it's just a constant hold. It's always, how many times were you ready to leave? How many times did you know it'd be best to leave, and how many times didn't you leave? That's the hold. Okay, so there's no regrets. There's no going, oh, I should have done that. There's none of that. No shame and guilt. It's just recognizing and accepting these things and then processing them and seeing how that your micro little world, how it plays out in society and how this is so pervasive in society and how this works. And yes, you are correct. I did stay with him until the kids were older, because I remember saying to my mom, I'll start putting money aside, and then in a few years when I leave, if things don't improve, the kids will be older, etc. And see, okay, again, how this whole narcissist thing plays into the money thing, because the matrix itself uses that fake ass monetary system to be able to control us because we think we need these things, right? It's all methods of control. But I never did put money aside because he would have known. And like I say, I wasn't allowed in saving to save or anything else. And if I did save up for the odd family holiday, which I did a few times, he would accuse me of stashing money away for myself. Yeah, complete control. Sue, your story is anybody who's watching your story right now that has been under a narcissistic abuser, doesn't matter what type, you guys, I'm trying to explain this in a way where you can see how this is relatable to not just a spouse, not just a husband. It could be a wife. It can be a teacher. It can be a boss. It's our whole government system. It's our whole work system. It is pervasive throughout society, these control mechanisms, guys. It is from the micro to the macro. This plays into everything. That's why when I say we need to heal, you can't just go onto Patrick Teahan's website or join his YouTube group and be like these other idiots that are over there stuck in their childhood healing for the next 10 years. No, and wondering, why can't I heal? You can't be like that alcoholic who is constantly fighting his addiction for the rest of his life. No, guys, healing is getting to the root of the issue and then becoming that person that doesn't rely on these things and isn't affected by these things anymore. That is true healing. All these people that say they're healing and all this, and I've been healing for decades and I've been detaching for decades, they're not doing it. They're not facing things. They're not coming to terms with what reality is and what the truth is. They're spinning around in circles and trying to hold on to parts of this matrix while they're at the same time they're trying to detach from other parts and say that they're so self-righteous and virtue signaling how great they are and they're not a narcissist and they're a good person. This true healing is detaching from everything. True healing is coming to terms and facing and being honest about everything. And it's about being courageous and detaching from the fake money, from the fake thinking and programming that was placed on us to tell us that we need a house, that we need a car, that we need stability, that we need a bank account, that we need to provide this, that we need to do this. It's all a lie. It's all a construct. It's all methods of enslavement, guys. And you can't look back at history and say, well, this is how it's been throughout history, but this is the best it's ever been, and we're the richest we've ever been, and people are the best off we've ever been. No, guys, that your whole history's a lie written by the Matrix itself, writes the history and edits the history. Okay, you can't look back at history and justify where you're, living how we are today and say, well, we have to have jobs, we have to have houses, we have to have all this stuff. Guys, when you die, where does all that stuff go? Where does all that stuff matter when you die? And you could die at any fucking moment. Think about it. They are stripping us of our innate essence. They have fooled us into thinking that we are nothing but consumerist, physical, material beings that need to just consume, and work, and do, and prove. They've lied to us. You have to get down to the root of who you are, in essence. You are not a slave. You are not a materialist consumer that relies on all this stuff outside of you. That is all a lie. So at that time, November 2017, he found out that I told my sister-in-law that I wanted to leave him and that I was only going to stay for 6 months. Yeah, see, and his flying monkey, your sister-in-law, his flying monkey came back for him. And so his attitude towards me went worse, and whilst his father was ill and he'd be at his father's house every day, I was glad. I even used to dread him coming home. I'm sure you did. But unbeknownst to me, when he found out I wanted to leave him, his father wrote my ex out of his will just so I wouldn't get any of his father's money. But his older brother was going to give him his share of the will as a gift. Yeah, and see, that's toxic toxic people. These people are all toxic. They're all bad. They're all narcissistic. They live in their fantasy. They live in the system. They love the money. They love the distractions. They love the bread and circuses. They love their possessions. That's what I'm trying to say, guys. Us who are survivors of this shit. Us who are empathic, in touch with our empathy and our humanity. Us who are sensitive to these things and can see these things. We need to understand that the whole matrix system of money and possessions and houses and all of this work and all of this in education and all of it is part of the matrix system. It works together, and we cannot be thinking that we're going to heal completely and we're going to recognize our complete wholeness by continuing to participate in these systems. It's never going to happen. You can't bat for both teams. You cannot play both sides. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. You cannot do that. It's impossible. You cannot sit on the fence in this life. You can, but it's going to either destroy you. It's going to ultimately destroy you either way, but either you're going to be a victim or you're going to be a predator. So from 2017 to 2021, the love had gone, especially on my part, and I was very unhappy and didn't even like him, and I prayed that someone would give me the strength to tell him it was over. I was scared of telling him that. But I wish to God I did have the guts to leave in 2011-12 because the kids would be with me now. Yeah, and it is so hard, the amount of tears I've cried over them. I just can't get over that they don't want to see me, and the thought of them with him and he's playing happy daddy makes me so angry. He was the arsehole, not me. He'd call them names, etc. Yeah, but they're never going to see that. You can't show them that. You have to break that bond to your children. Your children are grown up now. You are no longer responsible for them. You can't hold shame and guilt for any decisions you did or didn't make anymore. You have to face the truth, Sue. And the truth is your kids have grown up and been programmed and brainwashed into being narcissistic abusers themselves. Until they come to you one day on bended knee and apologize to you and are ready to make things right, you need to completely detach from them emotionally, spiritually, mentally, psychologically, maternally. You have to cut them off in every way and quit giving them your tears and your sorrow and all that. It does nothing for them but give them energy and your ex-husband energy, and it does absolutely nothing for you, and it's going to be an impediment to your healing until you do that. But to be honest, he brainwashed me against my family, and he's done the same to them. He painted me out as a money grabber who tried to sell the house. He told the kids that me and my solicitors were going to force the sale of the house and they'd have to move out. The kids even turned up one day at my mom's house while I was living there through the divorce with a copy of my solicitor's letter. Okay, I think I'll start part 3 here. Okay, so that's part 2, guys, and I'll continue this email after in the third part of this. You're brave, Sue. Guys, be courageous. Tell your story. This is how we break the holds of the narcissistic abuse. This is how we pierce the veil of this matrix, guys. This is how we stop the insanity. This is how we create our environments conducive to our healing. This is how we do it, through speaking truth and acting on it, guys, and being courageous. No more living in fear and lack, desire, worry, but realizing our true essence and who we are. We are eternal, all-powerful, all-knowing, empathic souls connected on that level of existence to everything else on that level of existence, occupying the most advanced biological thing on this earth. And we need to start acting in that way. We need to get off that programming of that we're nothing and we need to prove ourselves and we're just here to be mindless slaves working for money and for a house roof over our head and for lights and for poisonous food and all these other things that we've got programmed into our head. It's all toxic indoctrination that is purposeful by this matrix that's been invading us for generations now, that is keeping its control over us. And the only way to break free is to detach from it and to go inwards, to turn all that energy, attention, and focus inwards and start concentrating ourselves, thinking critically, using the faculties of our mind, and realizing our true essence and power, and that we don't need anything outside of ourselves. So take care of yourselves, guys. Nobody else will.